Can you hear me?
Yes, we are on now, so you're good. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome, Professor Tag. Hi, everyone. Today we have as normally in this channel, we're gonna do things in English today because we have a special guest, Professor Tag Elkhazin. Oh, it looks like we had a technical issue. Can you hear us well, guys? Let me look at the comments.
I can hear you well now, and if this continues, I can move to the phone. If it is from my side,
No, I don't think it's from your side. No, it's good.
Right.
They can hear us fine now. We will continue. So let me start all over then. Again, sorry about that, but welcome again. Thank you so much. I think they can hear us well now. As I mentioned earlier, normally we would, this program is a Solo Media's program. So Solomon Tasfamariam has been kind enough to lend us his studio, his platform for the good cause here. And we will be doing our interview in English, and we have a great, amazing guest today. He will tell us his background and why he is here, why he cares about Eritrea, and then what all this is about, what brought us together, what are we talking about when we talk about public diplomacy, archaeology, and so on. So we'll go into that. So as a little background, first of all, as I said, thank you so much to Solo and also our viewers here. Please, we want as many people to watch this as possible. So if you can like and share as you normally do. And to give you a little background, as we have witnessed in the last few years, and especially the last 2-3 years, there's been a lot of negative image of Eritrea in the headlines. And as Eritreans, we want to tell our story holistically, in a better way. That includes our rich history, our rich culture and diversity, and so on. So a few of us, through what we call Project Eritrea Next, have been coming together. And one of our projects is public diplomacy, which is to say people-to-people diplomacy. There is a way to tell the Eritrean story, or to tell the holistic picture or a holistic story about Eritrea through other means as well. And one of them is culture. So cultural diplomacy as part of public diplomacy. If we want to tell, who are we? Why should the world care about us? What is beyond the headlines about Eritrea? As we know, a lot of people, especially in the Western world, know a little bit about Eritrea, and some of it, unfortunately, becomes negative. So a project brought us together. in search of that, thanks to our great folks who are involved in, great Eritreans who are involved with this project, Eritrea Next. They thought about, okay, what about we get in touch with Professor Tag Elkhazin. He is knowledgeable about archaeology, Horn of Africa, Eritrea, and let's come up with, some way where we can collaborate with the university that he works for, University of Carleton, and possibly other universities as well. And start to tell that story, and start actually to tell that story from an Eritrean perspective as well. So that's why we are here. And then, of course, we chose Professor Tag Elkhazin, and I will let him tell his story and his background shortly. But officially, Tag, and I'm going to fondly call you Tag here, and Professor Tag and Professor Elkhazin. So it's all mixed up, but it's our Eritrean way of bringing you closer to home, is to refer to you by your first name, as we've been doing since we met. And I know you and I and a few of our other members have been talking for the last few months, and we've been talking about a lot of possibilities on how can we do this, how can we better tell this story. So without further ado, let me jump to my first question, which is to say, introduce yourself to your Eritrean audience. A lot of Eritreans know you already, but including where you were born, your story starting from Amderman all the way to Canada, and everything in between, and your educational background. And then I'll have a follow-up question after that. Again, thank you for the audience who is watching us live. Thank you for all your welcome messages. I can see them, and I'll share some of them with the professor as well. So Tag, take it away. Please tell us who you are and your background. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. I am Tag Elkhazin. I am an adjunct professor at Carleton University, the Pearson Institute for International Affairs. I am also a member of the board of directors of the Archaeological Institute of America, Ottawa Society. I was born in Omdurman in Sudan. I completed my basic education in Sudan, graduated from the University of Khartoum in 1964, did my postgraduate in the western coast of the United States, and I left my main qualification, and I went into conflict resolution, conflict analysis, political analysis, but not politics. I never engaged in politics. And I specialize in the Horn of Africa, adding to the traditional Horn, adding South Sudan as well. I deal with water issues, and I deal with oil issues, and I deal with conflicts in general. And we will go to the next question, and I will talk about my relationship with Eritrea. Thank you.
Yes, while I'm at it, just for the benefit of our audience, I just want to add that you are a professor of African Studies at Carleton, a senior fellow with the Norman Patterson School of International Affairs, and I think that's part of Patterson as well. I know you are, among the many things, expert of the Nile waters and the greater Horn of Africa region, the Greater Lakes, and so on. Very keen and involved in South Sudan from its pre-independence into post-independence and so on. You are an expert not only on African studies and archaeology and so on, but also of peace building and conflict resolution and so on. And I, at least from some of the profiles that I read about you, involved in, of course, in Sudan, South Sudan, Sweden, Germany, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Kenya, Nigeria, Chad, among many other countries as well. And speaking of archaeology, you are also board member of the Archaeology Institute of America. So very impressive, and I know you are a regular commentator on a lot of international media when it comes to conflict resolution, water resources, and what have you. So you are, to me, you are an educator, a researcher, an analyst, a political analyst, and an archaeology expert, all combined in one. So maybe as a way to tie all this, what do all this, given your background on all these things that you are involved, what do they have in common? Can you hear me?
Yeah, just repeat the question.
I said, given all your diverse background and all the things that you are involved in, what do they all have in common for you?
The cross-cutting commonality is that it deals with people. It also deals with facts and not opinions. I am a miser in opinion, because opinion is just one person's view. But when you deal with facts, the fact can be substantiated and they are non-negotiable. If I tell you that you are Eritrean, if I tell you that you are wearing a jacket, that's the fact. I think this is the main thing. Probably, I am an admirer of who fight for their rights. And other than Vietnam, I know, and Algeria, I know of very little countries and nations that fought for their rights as much as the Eritreans have done. Thank you.
Yes. So speaking of that, I know your familiarity with Eritrea goes way back. So take us a little back on where you first actually started to travel to Eritrea. You were familiar, and I know even with the early freedom fighters and what was going on back then. So give us a little background on maybe it's in the 60s or the 70s, but when was your first contact, and I know you are still engaged with Eritrea, and why do you still care about it?
Well, the first time I went to Eritrea was to the border town of Tesanei. And it is a short distance from Kassala, and that was in 1963. So I go back quite a while back, and 1963 in the calendar, this is a time when the Eritrean resistance started to take shape and to become serious. And just to mention, the first two Eritreans who started the rebellion, they were actually police officers in the Sudanese police service. And then they crossed the border and they started the very early, and then others took up. I had a very good relationship in the 70s, 80s with all the Eritrean movements, even the Ethiopian resistance. That's through transporting all the materials that were coming to support the Eritrean resistance were coming through Port Sudan. And for the record, it was the army, the Sudanese army clearing unit that used to clear that equipment, and the Eritrean resistance movements hired me as a contractor. I was transporting most of the stuff either through Sawakin, Tokar, Marafid, Dolabiaya, and then into Garora, and then into Eritrea. And it was the Eritreans who actually trained the Ethiopians on proper guerrilla warfare. And I am a witness to that. And then I used to transport their stuff as well. The Eritreans were sharing their supplies with the Ethiopian resistance. And I would take that to Jabal Ali, which is just off Al Qatarif. That's a very brief background of my engagement with Eritrea.
Speaking of that period, is there any one, maybe the famous fighters, or any names that you can name from that era that we may be familiar with?
Several, but the one who would mind
from 60 years ago. Yeah.
Alamin Muhammad Said. That's one person. Even the president himself, And this is why when he wrote the book, he gave me a personal, he gave me a free copy, and he wrote a note on it. But because I don't have permission, but in those days, I was in contact with most of the leaders who were stationed in Port Sudan or would come to Port Sudan when a shipment is coming.
Wow. So from President Isaias to Alamin Mohammed Said and a lot of the EPLF leaders, were your relationship mostly with the EPLF as opposed to the earlier ELF?
Yes, that's right. Because those are the ones who were actually carrying guns and doing the work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then some people are writing you, well, he's Tagadalai, you are a freedom fighter after. So we call our freedom fighters the Tagadalti, as you know. So we not only have a professor, an educator, a researcher, an analyst, but as you can see, he remembers. He is also. You were actually not there observing; you were helping them. So definitely, Tagadalai is a good qualification. Now, what about post-independence? Have you been to Eritrea recently? And when was the last time? What's in the last 30 years? What have your involvement been?
Let me answer that with a fact.
Mhm.
The first NGO that was driven out of Eritrea was the what was it? International Rescue Committee. The security and the government of Eritrea told them to pack up and leave. They are an American organization, humanitarian organization, with a very strong office in the United Kingdom as well. So they contacted me and they hired me and gave me a lot of money. Nobody wanted to go to Eritrea at that time. And they said, can you come to Eritrea and find out for us why you are being sacked, well, told to leave the country? And they had 35,000 tons of material in the stores at that time, all over the place. So I accepted and I took the plane, went to Asmara, went to Muhammad Al-Amin Said. He gave me a card and he contacted the minister in charge of security, asked me to go and see him. He was very welcoming. And he told me the reason why that organization, the International Rescue Committee, was sacked. There was a consignment and they were distributing the aid to the population, to the people. And there are these sacks where you have a white hand and a black hand like that on the sacks of the aid, of the American aid. And while they were doing that, they were telling the Eritrean people, the folks who were receiving the aid, that because your government is not taking very good care of you, your sisters and brothers from America are sending you this relief. And of course, the word went back to security. And within 24 hours, they were asked to leave the country. They were given 14 days to leave. And this is what I admire about Eritrea, that pride, that unwavering position that we are not out to be bought and we are not out to be sold. After that, the others were very careful, and whoever misbehaved was asked to leave. And while I am at it, I want to mention the time when Lois Axworthy, our Canadian ex-Minister of Foreign Affairs, was appointed as an envoy to Eritrea by the United Nations, by the Council. But his plane was stopped in the borders and he was asked to get back into the plane and get lost. He never stepped his feet in Asmara. He never spent a day in Eritrea. So you and I and those who are listening need to be very proud of that African pride, of that national pride. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. In fact, the headlines back then, when that happened, when the International Rescue Commission was and other NGOs were kicked out, some at least one headline I remember is that Eritrea said, just because we are asking for help, it doesn't mean we are beggars or we are begging for something. And that attitude, I think, that definitely represents that attitude to this day. And yeah, and by the way, speaking of, we want to tell a holistic, better story. Is that now it's a sense of pride, it's a sense of African pride, it's a sense of independence, self-reliance, and so on. We're still very proud of that. But as now, let me delve into the background a little bit. So, post-independence, is it just through the NGO and then of course they were kicked out? What about after that? Were you did you travel all over Eritrea? How familiar are you with Eritrea? And I know you mentioned the leadership and so on, but how familiar are you with overall Eritrea?
Let me go back to another incident. As I said, I am more into facts than opinion. One time, probably the late 70s, early 80s, I was driving from A to B in Eritrea. I was there for a certain reason. And I saw a crowd of people. So I drove my car and I parked, and from the distance I was watching. And the Ethiopian forces captured a number of Eritrean boys, young men. They were handcuffed, and there was a football field. And you have the goal, you have the steel members, two on the side and one on top. And the families of these boys were there watching. Nobody cried, nobody moved. They hung the boys, 8 or 9 of them, in the crossbar, just like that. I still remember that incident, and every time I tell the story, I become emotional because neither the boys nor their families uttered one word. Nobody was crying, nobody was begging, and they moved their legs for a while, and they were gone. So when we're talking about Eritrea, it is not you and me today. We have got to remember those people, and we have got to remember the price that the rank and file Eritrean, men and women, the Eritrean resistance, they had a lot of young women for them, which is not very common. And they were fighting, and they were in the front lines, and they were dying. Thank you.
Absolutely. By the way, what you just described, very, very touching. I can only imagine how it feels to have been in that stadium. This sounds like Tessane to me. Is that correct? This was in Tessane. Okay. I know.
Yeah.
So this was in Tessane. Okay, I know it's a sad occasion and it's a story of a struggle, but let's switch it up a little bit. What about I don't know, for the sake of maybe you're vacationing, have you been to Massawa or Asmara and all? I want to hear your the places that you have been in Asmara. I mean, in Eritrea. Where else have you been to?
One of the things that I remember vividly, one time I went for a reason that I cannot disclose. And at night, I was walking around beside the hotel. I forgot the names now. And I saw the president, Isaias Afwerki, in his car. And I remember it was an old Opel German made, an old model. And he came to pay his condolences. Somebody died and he came to pay his condolences. He was in the car by himself. There was no bodyguard. There was no arcade, no motorcycles, no sirens. He came down. I was there. He came down. He paid his condolences, sat for a while, went back like any citizen. It was early evening, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and he drove all by himself, went away. So when we are criticizing the system, the governance in Eritrea, we need to be careful. We should not only look for what is negative, but we should also look for what is positive. And we need to be careful that Westminster style democracy may not be the suitable system for some countries. And the Africans had their own systems. We don't have to bend to the term democracy, civilian rule, democracy, civilian. What does it mean? Are we ready for it? Do we have the ingredients for that? Do we have an alternative system of governance? But we need to be careful when we are criticizing. There is nobody who is perfect, neither you nor me nor President Aforki. However, people who are criticizing need to balance the positive and the negative. Thank you.
Absolutely. That goes to everyone. And I know that's a big topic, maybe a topic for another day, but I totally agree with you. And luckily, a lot of people have realized that we're trying to narrow the gap, even among Eritreans. Like you said, opinions are something, facts are another, and facts are usually in the middle. And they force you to look at the positive and the negative at the same time. So definitely. So from that perspective, let's switch gears a little bit toward our main topic for today, which is archaeology. But let's start with what are we trying to do? What is this? What does it mean to you? Or when someone approached you first to say, we have something like this in mind. Why should people care, and why archaeology?
Right. Before I get into that, just very quickly, I am working on a very small project to have a round table discussion, round table of experts, people who are knowledgeable, at the Norman Patterson School for International Affairs at Carleton. I am trying to create a link for the civil society and the promoters of the other face of Eritrea to the academic institutions, because the generation of tomorrow is the students of today. Being an associate professor there, I have the right and the access to the facilities, to the halls, and whatever have you. And at a later stage, we will work together to assemble maybe 5 or 6 people to just come and debate what are the cons and pros, what is the way forward, what is the advice that academicians like myself and analysts would give to the Eritrean government to reconnect effectively and equitably with the international community. That is a project in progress, and I will keep you informed if there are developments. Now, let me get to your question about archaeology. Archaeology is one of the most potent tools and ways of connecting people to people. And it is a cornerstone in cultural diplomacy. I always say that Canada as a country is not really a major player in the international arena. Canada lost the seat in the non-permanent seat for the council, the UN Security Council, twice in a row. One time to Portugal and one time to another small country as well. The days when Canada was leading in peacekeeping are gone. So we need to connect the people together. We need to open doors to give the right face of Eritrea. And we need to work through the grassroots if working through the top hierarchies becomes difficult. And the beauty of archaeology, one of our students said, archaeology is the umbilical cord linking the present to the past. And this is where I am trying to work with you and with other colleagues to find what is this part to which Eritrea is connected. The Eritrea of today did not just fall from the sky. The Eritrea of today developed, and the history and the archaeology is part of that. It is glorious. You can't imagine how happy my colleagues are in the board of directors that we are going to have an event pretty soon. But I will stop there and see if you have more questions. Thank you.
Yes, and we will come to that, and I think you are building well. So at the end of the day, when we say cultural diplomacy, how is that different from, say, what the government-to-government diplomacy, or diplomacy as we know it, leaders meeting other leaders and dealing with stuff. So how does the people-to-people diplomacy, and then of course cultural diplomacy, how do the two connect?
There are 3 tracks for diplomacy. There is track 1 diplomacy, which is government to government. There is track 2 diplomacy, which is ex-ministers, ex-ambassadors, ex-prime ministers, prominent tribal leaders, and so on, when they exert their effort behind an issue. That's track 2 diplomacy. And then there is track 3 diplomacy. That's the people-to-people diplomacy. Education, exchange of students, exchange of missions, exhibition of folklore dances, folklore singing. That's track 3. This is what the people are interested in. Justin Trudeau is one. Isaias Afwerki is one. Eritrea is 5, 6, 7 million people. Canada is 40, 41 million people. So if I can keep the name of Eritrea among the 41 less the government, then I would have achieved the objective, because tomorrow Justin Trudeau is going to go. The members of parliament are going to change. And unless we as Canadian diaspora, unless we do our job, and unless the government in Asmara backs us and backs our effort, we're not going to go very far. The best thing that you and I can do as diaspora is to influence the policy of Canada so that Eritrea benefits from that.
Absolutely, and that's where we converged, by the way. And thank you for elaborating that for us. I think what we are doing definitely falls under the track 3 type of diplomacy. And in that effort, what we set out to do, those of you who are following what we're trying to do with Project Eritrea Next, one of the 4 major projects that we are working on is public diplomacy. And as part of that, our mission for this year is let's try to do some activities and campaigns that goes beyond the headlines. We call it Eritrea Beyond the Headlines. And as part of that, okay, so who are we trying to tell, or who are we trying to influence with that? Definitely world leaders, academicians, influencers, the international media, so that when they write about Eritrea and the Eritrean people and the Eritrean cause and what Eritrea is trying to do, they don't get it negatively. And this right here goes a long way, especially with the kind of events that we are talking about, because it reaches both ways. It reaches the leaders, the influencers, the think tanks, and what have you, and it also reaches the public as well. And as part, what we are trying to do is, of course, this would not make sense if you don't get collaboration from our embassies, the Eritrean government, the Canadian government, the US government, and what have you. And so far, I definitely want to thank our folks at the Eritrean embassy in Washington, D.C. and the consulate in Toronto. They are doing a fabulous job, and they have made all resources available for this, and we will continue to ask them for resources and help and advice. It only works when we all collaborate. So having said that, let's go a little bit into what Carleton University, and I know in partnership with Ottawa and others as well, what do they normally do as far as archaeology is concerned? And I know you have this monthly speaking series or something like that. So can you take us a little bit into what these universities normally do in terms of archaeology, and then we can tell people that's where we fit in.
Right. Carleton and Ottawa, the two large universities, between the two of them, there is a population of probably 70,000, 75,000. So they are very large universities. And they teamed up the Department of Archaeology in each of the two universities. We teamed up very cordially, and we are together managing the society, the archaeological society of the Archaeological Institute of America. The Archaeological Institute of America is the largest institute of archaeology in the world, and its hub is in the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston and the famous Harvard University. So it is not a joke, and we are very influential in exposing civilizations. We are very resourceful, very rich. The museum is extremely rich. If you take the Nubian civilization, the Museum of Fine Arts has 25,000 artifacts of from Nubia, Sudanese Nubia. And if you go to the Museum of Fine Arts, you probably need 3 or 4 days to cover the whole museum. Harvard University is very much interested as well, and I have been invited to write a chapter in a book about the image of Nubia today. So they are following up Nubia until today. Muhammad Wardi, who was singing before, as you know, he's Nubian as well. So Carleton and Ottawa are partners in the Society of the Archaeological Institute of America, and we have a lecture once every month. And the outreach to find the speakers, credible speakers, is part of my job as a director in the board of directors. And just to confirm the good news, we already have a speaker for October 20th. We are going to have a world-renowned archaeologist, and she's going to talk about Adolis, which is a very rich site discovered in Eritrea. And I'm delighted because this will prove to us, again, facts, not opinion, will prove to us that the Eritreans did not cross the sea from somewhere and live there. They are rooted in the ground. And if you allow me to give you another example that struck me with pride, I was driving out of Asmara going somewhere else, and I found a group of 5 or 6 women in a hillside, and they were collecting the small stones from the ground. And I stopped. They happened to speak Arabic. And I said, "Are you going to sell the stones?" And they said, "No. We are clearing the stones, and under the stone there is a little soil. We are clearing the stones to cultivate the soil." They don't want to leave their place, and because there is no land to cultivate, they are removing the stones to cultivate. We have got to understand the mentality of the people, and we have got to factor into our analysis the rank and file Eritrean, including these women. So the sense of nationalism is not only among the elites. The sense of belonging is not only among the elites. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the kind of, and I know this event that we are talking about, we are building towards, where you have the expert archaeologist, the Italian lady from who is very familiar with the recent discovery about Adulis and others. So we'll have experts. Hopefully we'll have experts coming from Eritrea about the recent discoveries and Eritrean archaeology in general. But as we build up to that, it's this kind of the stories you mentioned that we want to tell about Eritrea. And I know we're going to do mini events and virtual events and things like that. And hopefully we will be able to publish something in major papers that say, oh, here's something that you didn't know about Eritrea. So it's the story of the people and their history and so on. But speaking of of archaeology, and I know it's a big topic, and we're talking about history that could go thousands of years. Can you give us this big overview of when we, even as Eritreans, I don't think we know as much about our own archaeology as we should. Kind of a synopsis of what from the ancient, the Stone Age, all the way to the Italian colonization and everything in between. What is the big picture that people should be aware of? And I know I'm trying to have you summarize something major in a few sentences, but can you just give us a big picture of why people should care about Eritrean archaeology?
Eritrea, the Eritrean culture and archaeology, for a very long time, for tens of years, regrettably have been in the shadow of Ethiopia. When you talk about Eritrea, in the mind of most of the people, oh, Eritrea, oh, it was an Ethiopian part of the Ethiopia. Mengistu was fighting to bring it back to Ethiopia. So if I were the government in Asmara, I will be promoting all efforts that Eritrea is a standalone civilization, is a standalone people, is a standalone culture, and we want to continue to stand alone. Let me take you across the border, not very far, to the Awash Valley. Our mother Lucy was found in the Awash Valley. The Awash is not away from the borders of Eritrea, where it dissipates. It dissipates into the Nile and it doesn't go anywhere. The Awash River just dissolves in the water. Mother Lucy, who is 3.4 million years old and kept in the museum in Addis Ababa, she was found in the Awash Valley. And that area, the Awash, the Nile, all that area is very rich in archaeology, including Eritrea. It is presumed, there is no proof, it is presumed that the 3 or 4 Muslims at the beginning of the message from Prophet Muhammad, when they crossed Bab al-Mandab and they came over, that they actually landed in Eritrea. Some people say that they built a mosque. Post that, there was a mosque, a very famous mosque, probably one of the areas that were built. So archaeology and research, especially in archaeology, there are 2 main disciplines: the excavation and the exhibition. The excavation is when you go to a site and you find artifacts. The exhibition is when you exhibit these artifacts after you do carbon 14 and you know how old it is and so on. Regrettably, because of since 1991-92, Eritrea was in the process of building the political shape of Eritrea, the governance shape of Eritrea. That's the time when it disengaged with Ethiopia. Right now, that's my own opinion. I may be right, I may be wrong. I feel that there is interest to showcase Eritrea not only as a piece of land that's separated from Ethiopia, but as a standalone civilization. For that, you and I know what to do. My colleagues in the board of directors know what to do. That is why we managed to collect these connections, and we are having the very first lecture on the 20th of October. But through your venue, I am making a request to the Eritrean government to support us. We need that. We alone cannot do it. And it has got to be a sustained effort. And one of the first requests that you and I and others should carry it, if we can bring Dr. Massa in person, it is more effective than online. We can do it online, but let us work together. And I hope that the Eritrean government can support us. The other area, while I am at it, those 4 are the only books that I found circulating about Eritrea. I would like us to find more. This was written, it is a very good one. Which one? Yeah, Emmanuel Sahle wrote a very good one. And then Dan Connell also wrote another one. I would like us to use this track 3 and enlighten the students, the under 40. I am always concerned about the under 40. And as you know, in Eritrea, probably 55-60% of the population are under 40. So if we can, in the future, think of a project just to collect a copy each and give a small package of library items to both universities, that will go a long way, because when we say Eritrea, everyone is going to go to the library. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I know we will probably take this into like a project by itself. A couple of things that he mentioned, and one is let's equip this colleges and universities with books about Eritrea. And sometimes they randomly pick books. In fact, one of the books that you just picked is just a tourism book that was written 30 years ago. So, but we have a lot of great writers and researchers from Asmara, from the diaspora, and that is our homework, not only to us and who are working in the project Eritrea Next, but it's our entire audience. It's all about coordinating with using the wisdom of the audience to say, okay, we consider ourselves, those of us in the diaspora, as ambassadors of our own country. So what books would be great ambassadors of the Eritrean story? Factual books, not opinion books, not necessarily about politics, but about the genesis of who we are and things that academicians can take seriously. So we will gather that, and then of course there are probably too many educational institutions out there, but we have to pick a few. And I know you gave me a few suggestions of where we should start: the big ones, the Harvards, the Yales, and the Carletons, and so on. So we will do that. So that's the homework that you have assigned us, and we definitely we are on that. And especially right now, it's coming from Ethiopia, there is this concerted campaign to discredit Eritrean history, and so we are also doing it kind of from a defensive point of view as well. It's all about tying the kingdom of Aksum to Ethiopia only, and then making this weird twisted road that leads to, hey, by the way, Port of Asmara and Asaba, you should give us at least one of them. That's where they're trying to arrive. And one way of defeating all that is, instead of arguing to them and is actually presenting the facts, that telling them that your story, your history is based off it's fiction, but the facts say a lot of different things about Eritrea. So that is one. And then definitely I see it from at all levels. We would get a lot of cooperation from Eritrean authorities. They are very open to this. And as you mentioned, there is, when the country was doing some nation building projects, maybe this was in the back burner. Now I can definitely say it is in the front burner. It's something that we are all aware and keenly engaged to. And that's the reason a lot of people are following us today. And that's the reason the event that we're talking about will be successful. And that is the reason all the things that we have to do between now and then will be successful as well. And definitely it's dear to my heart. And I know you're not just a gentleman coming here to just give us advice online. You are also part of that team, and you'll be very pleased what we will be all working towards. But let me...
A couple of quick points, if I may. The first one, you mentioned we are ambassadors. If you connect with the embassy and connect with Asmara, it will be very valuable if Asmara could appoint an honorary consul, an Eritrean honorary consul for Canada. We don't have an embassy here. There might be an office in Toronto, but if an honorary consul could be appointed, it is a very cheap way rather than having an embassy. Canada is the 9th strongest economy in the world. We were there mining, and then things got out of proportion, and the company had to sell to the Chinese, and we lost that connection. So that's one thing that we need to consider. The other thing, if you wish, or somebody else wishes, I could connect you with Harvard. I could connect you with the Hutchings Institute of African Studies and African American Studies. This is a very strong institute. It is a very rich institute, a lot of money, and they know very little, if nothing at all, about it, about Eritrea. The boss of the Hutchings Institute, the president now, is a Black American. And if they are writing a book about Nubia, why don't they have an event about Eritrea? So if you wish to have that connection, let me know and we'll work on it. Thank you. You froze, Daniel. You are frozen. You are frozen, Daniel.
Oh, are we
you're
back?
back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so it
So
was
did
just
you
me.
hear that part about the Hutchings Center for
Yes,
African
yes,
and African American?
yes, I did,
You
and
heard
that is
that?
definitely
Okay.
something that we will be tackling as well. Yeah, and
Yeah.
of course, it doesn't get better than that. And thank you. What you do best is you are very, very well connected and very well respected. And if you open the doors for us, by us I mean us Eritreans, not just me and the project team that you are part of, but all Eritreans as well. But we will collaborate. We will get organized, and we will do this in a good way. And as you know, not only with Canada, but the relations with the US could use a lot of improvements. And hopefully, we are hearing good news that things are on the right track. So this will only facilitate that. So it couldn't be at a better time where we are thinking about this. So definitely, and those of you who are following this, and I know some of you could be from Harvard, and you could be students or educators there. So as we do this, and if you want to say your input and give us your advice as well, please message me, and I will coordinate with Professor Tag here and others so that we are all on the same page. So wonderful. As we wrap up, Tag, and I know we can come back and tell more of what we are doing and give status update and so on. But it would be amiss if we don't mention what is going on in Sudan. As a Sudanese yourself, and I know this what we are doing today is about Eritrea, but what Sudan is going through is terrible. And as you know, for a lot of Eritreans, for most Eritreans, Sudan is their second home. And we like to say that for Sudanese, for Sudan, people of Sudan, Eritrea is their second home. And I think, I'm sure you would agree, the Eritrean government did a great job in the way it responded to the crisis, not only in trying to solve what is going on, and I hope they use Asmara in their relations with Eritrea to come closer, but more importantly, the Sudanese people who find themselves as refugees, as we were, a lot of them are coming to Eritrea, and what I am very pleased about is that they are not being treated as refugees. Neither should they. And that's to the kudos to the Eritrean government in terms of that, because that goes a long way. So as you, I know there's a lot of well wishes here. People are writing, for peace and love and good wishes for Sudan. But I'd like to hear your reaction in terms of what's going on in Sudan, and as well as what Eritrea chose to do and the refugees in Eritrea. Can you say something about that?
If I may reverse the order, let me start, because what Eritrea has done is very clear and concise. It is only noble people who pay back the debt. At one point, if you move from Madani to Jazeera and you come close to Gadarif, and then from Gadarif to Haya and Sinkat, there were several camps, places where the Eritreans found refuge from the brutality of the regime in Addis Ababa. And they could get permits and come to Khartoum or go to Madani and work there. And President Afwerki, apparently he's a noble man, and he decided to pay back part of the debt. That's my own interpretation. What the president did, he said, any Sudanese who wants to come to Eritrea, he can do that by crossing the borders. And he gave instructions that even the small amount of money for stamping the entry, they should be relieved of that amount of money. They are not to pay the amount of money. And when they come into Eritrea, that the system, the regime, the government needs to make sure that they have a roof and they have something to eat. So they were not told, yes, you are welcome, you can come in, and then they are left to their own fate, as some countries are doing. That's the word of thank you to the government in Asmara that is due, and it has got to be acknowledged. What is happening in Sudan in a nutshell? Political analysts differentiate between a state and a nation state. Japan is a nation state. Bangladesh is a nation state. Portugal is a nation state. When you have cross-cutting commonalities between the people, the same language, the same history, the same religion, the same dress code, the same tonality, and so on, that forms a nation. When you have multi-ethnic groups, then you have a state, but you don't have a nation. Sudan has 64 different ethnic groups. Ethiopia has 85. South Sudan has 45. Those cannot be a nation. The commonality is probably some history, and the commonality is the geography. But the geography is static, it is the land. The language, the tonality, the religion, the whatever, have all the other soft pillar parts of the population are not common. So it is quite a complex conflict in Sudan. Nobody understands it. And as well, after the CPA, after the Comprehensive Peace Agreement that was signed in 2005, the world dropped Sudan. They wanted South Sudan to separate so that the Christians could preach the gospel. The Christians could go there and preach, because there were a lot of people who were neither Muslims nor Christians. And then countries like the US, Sweden, Norway, Great Britain, the bar of Sudan went greatly down. Nobody cares. I was talking to someone, an advisor in the White House, and I said a couple of times, donor fatigue, donor fatigue. He said, Tag, we are past donor fatigue. We are now in compassion fatigue. We don't care. And that's the tragedy. Until the Paris conference, only 2% of the call to keep the people alive was met. 2%. That's all. And we don't know what will come out of the Paris now. I also applaud President Afwerki because wherever he went, he doesn't travel a lot, he doesn't talk nonsense. Wherever he went, he was very clear, very definite, very sharp about the situation and what needs to be done. No ulterior motives. There are no motives. There are no ambitions. And I think it is too early to put an opinion or to put a roadmap now. And we need a process for that. And we need to identify the conflict first. No conflict analysis, credible conflict, professional conflict analysis have been done. What is the genesis of the conflict? What are the negotiables and non-negotiables? You cannot bring people to the table if you know that their situations are non-negotiable. It will fail, as it has been failing all the time. So we need to start with the process rather than bringing the people to the table without designing that process. Thank you.
Yes, and again, wishing the people of Sudan all the best. And I think part of the solution is that if you have a neighbor, a friendly neighbor who is welcoming the people and becoming part of the solution, and it's also stable itself, and it knows who it is, and it knows its past and its future, and is clear. And going back to speaking of our, cultural diplomacy, this is not only between Eritrea and the West, but the same thing among the people of the Horn of Africa. And my hope, and I think things are shaping up to be, is that Eritrea could be that center because luckily we have at least stability there and peace and so on. So if it could also tell its own story better, that it could also be part of the solution. It could also be, so okay, now we have a commonality that is based on facts and not opinions, but I think we are all part of that picture. So that's my hope for the future. So speaking of the future outlook, as you see, and I know we're talking about the entire region in Sudan and so on, but just sticking to archaeology and history and excavations and exhibitions and so on. What do you think will be transpiring over the next 5-10 years, just for Eritrea and the region? What are the possibilities that were not there before, but you see now?
I am not very much into crystal balling. Crystal balling is when you look at the crystal and you say, this is what will happen in the future.
No.
But just taking the potential, just talking about the potential. In my archives, there is a study of 2 volumes that was funded by the Canadian government about 15 years back. It's a very interesting 2 volumes. Canada funded a company to survey and ascertain the minerals in East Africa, with the exception of Eritrea. Intentionally, they left out Eritrea. So all the countries who are bordering the Indian Ocean were surveyed empirically, and the potential, the extractive industry potential, was assessed in those 2 volumes. I paid $800 for the 2 volumes. You cannot get them today. But Eritrea was excluded intentionally, and the survey did not take it. That takes me to what I call interdependence. We can talk a lot, but unless there are tangible interdependencies, and the interdependencies are what you need that I have on what I need that you have, then there is a common interest. Interdependencies create common interest. You and I and others need to find that out. Right now, it is not clear. It might be in your mind, in my mind, but that's not helpful. So I believe that if from your side you do your part, and from my side I do part, we can create an Eritrea Sudan support group, an Eritrea Sudan working group, something like that. Let us start with the nucleus. Let's start with a small team, people who are really interested. But we need to identify, we need identification, and we need research to answer your question. There is a lot of potential. The extractive industry is a potential. The fishing industry is a potential. Egypt utilized that. One time I was in Asmara and I just asked where the president was. And he was in Musawa. What is he doing? The Egyptians signed the contract to fish in the archipelago, to fish in these areas in the Red Sea. And because it was a contract generating foreign currency, the president was there to supervise that. And somebody who was in the meeting told me that there was no electricity. There lamps fueled with gasoline. And after the official meeting ended, the president put off the lamp, the big lamp, and he put a small candle. And the people asked him, why did you do that? And he said, the gas there is paid by the state. This is my own candle. So this is one thing. Absolutely. When you want to analyze someone, you don't just take the negative side of him. That's not fair if there are any negative sides. But this man, he can walk and drive safely within his country, and he's very conscious of honesty, very conscious of public property, and anyone who embezzles anything, that will be the last time the people will see him. So I think that the Horn of Africa has got commonalities that need to be found. If you just take the GERD in Ethiopia, 6,500 megawatt. What Ethiopia needs is probably about 2.5 to 3 megawatts, 3,000 megawatts. The rest they are already selling to Kenya. They are already selling to Somalia. They are selling to Sudan 100 megawatts. That's interdependence. So let us have a team. We will need support. What are the interdependencies within the region in which Eritrea can play a role and in which Eritrea is interested, and in which a country like Sudan is interested, so that we can have credible bilateral relations. Thank you.
Absolutely. A lot of things to unpack there. And there's the issue of sovereignty and security and interdependence and so on. And there's a balance, in fact. And by the way, speaking of electricity, I'm very hopeful the government is taking, I think, good steps to hopefully triple the megawattage over the next 3 years. It's already taken place. Let's cross our fingers. And once you do that, and then there will be hopefully a better interdependence. I think we still can import, but you don't want a country to import 100% of its power from a foreign country that has a lot of adversarial history as well. But that's a topic for another day, because you are so knowledgeable at many, many great topics. I can't get enough. In fact, to me, you are like a James Bond and a senator and a minister of information and a minister of culture and foreign affairs combined. So a lot of things to take advantage of there. But thank you, sir, for making yourself, your time, your wealth of information and knowledge available to us. We are so grateful. I hope you can see all these flowers and emojis and love and hearts that has been just rotating. We have about, I think the last time I saw, close to 1,000 people have been watching this live, and I'm sure they will spread it all over the next few days. I will let you know how that goes, and I know you will you are open to coming back here and telling continue to give us good advice. As you can see, we are very willing as people, as a level 3 diplomacy or track 3 diplomacy, but you've seen responses from the Eritrean embassy as well, how open they are. They will, and verbally they have told me that they are very open to this, and they will be very supportive, and I'm sure we'll get the same kind of reaction from inside Eritrea as well. So Tag, if there is anything that we did not mention today, or something that you may have observed during our conversation that you would like to say before we depart, mic is all yours. Thank you.
Not really, but I would like us to work a little bit more on interdependence.
بجد قلتم إيه زوجي دفين زركة جد إجزاء كابع كل يوم لذا زوجي زياء فيها ويدي.
Oh, something happened there. I think the music came on. Are you still on? Are you still on, Tag? Oh, it looks like he's frozen. Well, until he comes back. Oh, I think you're back now, Tag.
Future work on probably have a session on interdependencies and how we can promote them. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. Sorry, I think I think you were frozen for the last. I can hear you. Can you hear? We can hear you.
No, yeah, right, great. Yeah, very quickly so that we close.
Yeah.
I think we need to work on interdependencies sometime in the future. And also, if this will be in YouTube, if you could send me the link of the YouTube, I appreciate that.
I would, yeah. Well,
it will
again,
be in YouTube. Am I correct?
Yeah, we are already on YouTube, and it's. I'll send you the link. So with that, I think we did what we have to do for today. Anything that we may have forgotten.
Thank you very much, Daniel, here to support you.
Thank you, sir. So with that, thank you for everyone who's been following our conversation. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for everything you do. And like I said, we need a lot of ideas and how you can collaborate as well. So we'll take that in. My job and the team's job. In fact, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the coordinating team that Tag, you know who they are. And there are a lot more where that came from that we will be introducing you to more of. So this is just the beginning. And hopefully by the end of the year, we would have accomplished a lot. So this was kind of our kickoff, let's make it public kind of meeting. With that, sir, thank you so much, and have a wonderful afternoon. Take care.
بجد قلتم إيه زوجي دفين زركة جد إجزاء كابع كل يوم لذا زوجي زياء فيها ويدي.